Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the December Coffee Talk. We are going to be doing the SSIS Business Ops and User Support Year in Review. Sad to report that Radio Ross is on vacation, so in his place you have me, Eric Kratz, Supervisor for SSIS User Support. Glad to be here, glad to be back. The agenda for today is that we're going to do some general housekeeping. We're going to do that usual Tennyson warning that we go over. We're going to do a help desk overview, learning and development summary, and then a business operations summary. And then we're going to do the mentor of the month and closing announcements. So this is that Tennyson warning that we like to put up for people to view. We're going to give you about 45 seconds to a minute to review. And I just want to add something that was added at the last coffee talk. These webinars are semi-public, so we do have external members joining from time to time. So we do not share private data during these coffee talks. Is everybody seeing my screen okay? I just want to double check before I move on. I just saw a chat.
Yep, it's the Tennyson warning.
Okay, great. General housekeeping, attendees have been muted upon entry. To speak, please raise your hand using the reaction emoji at the bottom of your screen and you will be unmuted by panelists. Questions can also be submitted using the chat feature, which will be monitored by the SSIS Business Operations and User Support staff. Closed captioning can be enabled using the CC button located on the bottom left of your screen. This session is being recorded and will be posted on the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy website in the near future. And follow-up documentation will be prepared and distributed to attendees 7 to 10 days following this WebEx event. Heidi did send out a mentor blast this morning with the updated PowerPoint information. And if one of my other panelists can post the link to the PowerPoint as well, that would be great into the chat. All right, let's get started. So the SSIS help desk alludes to several different levels across the spectrum. We have our tier 1 help desk with Shauna and Cassie. We have a CW subject matter expert queue, a physical subject matter expert queue, and those are with the SSIS user support and business operations team. And then we have an SSIS tier 2 and tier 3 partner with Minute at DHS to help us with technical issues and data fixes. The following slide breaks down some high-level data regarding the intake resolution of tickets from January 1st of 2023 through December 14th of 2023. So far in 2023, the Tier 1 Help Desk has evaluated and analyzed 10,003 tickets for an average of 28.6 tickets per day. Through analysis and evaluation, Tier 1 will then work with these tickets to resolution or funnel them to our partners across the help desk spectrum, which will be discussed in a little more detail later. The graph attached to this page represents the naming conventions used by all of our queues to categorize reported issues or requests for assistance, and a representation of how many tickets received by subject area. So as you can see over here to the far left, the PMI push is still really high, over 1,600 tickets this year alone on that. And then it gradually goes down from there regarding fiscal, other program changes, application component issues, etc. We use this data, or I will start using this data to help inform some training topics in the future with our learning and development team. The chart on this page is illustrative of the top 10 requests handled by our help desk queues. That's tier 1, tier 2, CW queue, or child welfare queue, and fiscal queue, as well as the data fix queue, and is representative of 62% of the tickets received by all of the combined queues so far this year. The top 10 issues, again, can be shown here, ranging from our top high flyer with the PMI push all the way down to general technical issues. This daily monitoring one snuck in. These are tickets generated by the Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center. So if you had questions about what daily monitoring were, that is what they are. Other issues that frequently come in relate to data fix related to open and closing work groups, application use regarding placement, password reset requests, Azure connection issues as of late. As you may all know, Azure was launched back in August and has been the bulk of our technical tickets, I'd say, over the last couple of months. And those are handled by our fearless tier 2 gurus at Minute at DHS. And then of the 10,003 tickets received and analyzed by Tier 1, Tier 1 was charged with resolving 4,224, or 42% of those ticketed issues. The chart on this slide is representative of the top 10 issues reported and resolved solely by Tier 1 in 2023 and constitutes 80% of the tickets received by this queue. I'd like to give a shout out to Shauna Myers, our help desk lead, as well as Cassie Navarrete, and the former help desk gurus Stacy Stoner and Samantha Breidenbeck for their hard work in resolving these tickets. And then of the 10,003 tickets received and analyzed by the SSIS help desk, the CWQ, or the child welfare subject matter experts, were charged with resolving 399, or roughly 4% of the tickets received. The chart on this slide is representative of the top 10 issues reported and resolved solely by our child welfare SMEs and Cynthia Shapolsky, and constitutes about 90% of the subject areas for the tickets received by this queue. I did want to mention that our SSIS child welfare subject matter experts on the SSIS business operations team are often our first line of defense in terms of consultation on the help desk tickets, and that is not reflected in this data on the screen. Our subject matter experts and the supervisor of business operations, Cynthia Shapolsky, are invaluable assets to this section. So kudos to Marcia Riss, Erica Jepson, and Cynthia Shapolsky. And then, Alex, did you have a question, or did you? I just saw your hand
Did
raised.
not.
Okay.
The raise your hand button's right next to the reaction button. Forgive me.
All right. And then of the 10,003 tickets received and analyzed by the SSIS help desk, the fiscal queue was charged with resolving 694, or roughly 7% of the tickets received. So again, the chart on this page is the top 10. A lot of it goes under this application use fiscal, which is a wide variety of different things. So my focus for 2024 will really be to kind of work with the help desk teams across the help desk spectrum to look at our naming conventions and make sure that they're reflective of what's being worked on, so that we can drill a little bit further into the data so that we can get information out to agencies regarding a variety of different issues. Again, I want to thank Cynthia Shapolsky, the former fiscal subject matter expert, Molly Kaler, and the new fiscal subject matter expert, Samantha Breidenbeck, for their help in these areas. And then I just wanted to mention, I didn't report a lot on tier 2 because they're not here to defend themselves, but I did calculate the amount of tickets that they were charged with resolving in up to December 14th, and that total was 4,686. So our relationship with our tier 2 and our tier 3 partners over at Minute at DHS is also invaluable. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Dave Hemela and Janelle Moran, as well as Amy Mollers, who helps us a lot with our technical and data fix issues. All right, this slide really just is going over the last 6 months. The SSIS Help Desk has received 4,635 tickets just in the last 6 months alone. We saw a spike in tickets in September and October, likely related to the rollout of Azure Remote Desktop. Our average time for ticket resolution hovers around 7 days. It was at 3 days, but it has gone up to 7 days because we have some outstanding tickets related to Azure. And we had a spike in resolution time of 12 days in September, which can be attributed to a couple of factors. We went down to 2 staff on the help desk at tier 1, and also that rollout of Azure has affected a lot of turnaround time. There's still quite a few outstanding tickets that are being reviewed for resolution. So just again, wanted to make mention of that. All right, what's up next? Oh yes, I get to make a special announcement today. I will be hiring for 2 new help desk positions at the tier 1 level. So if you're interested in working with a fun and helpful team, update those resumes and apply on the link issued to you in the PowerPoint. Otherwise, I can grab that real quick here and see if I can throw that into the chat. Maybe not. I'll throw it into the chat after I stop share or go off camera here. But the job ID you're looking for is 72265, and this will be posted from now through January 28th. All right, do I have any questions about the information that I presented? I just wanted to give a high-level overview of the volume of tickets that we receive and just kind of some of the high-flying areas. Thank you, Cassie.
Questions that I see in chat?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Shauna Meyer.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to come on video quick just to introduce myself. Well, I've met a lot of people, but my name is Shauna Myers and I'm the lead at the help desk. I'm going to unshare my screen because my setup at my desk here is not great for video, but I wanted to share some information with you today. So first, I just kind of wanted to go over just how the help desk kind of works. So just really big overview of, your agency emails the help desk. Then you get that auto response that just anytime the help desk gets an email, it just sends an auto response that says, hello, we have received your request. The email has been forwarded to the appropriate person for processing. At that same time, it's received by the help desk. And currently, like Eric said, right now it's me and Cassie that are on the help desk. And so we will either respond with a question or an answer, or just a general, if we have to look into it a little more, we'll just send you the general email that will prioritize your request and get back to you. This email is always sent within 24 hours of receiving it. So if you do not receive a personalized email that has Cassie or my name on the bottom, please do let us know. Maybe there was something problem-wise in receiving it at the help desk. The other thing is if we are sending it to a different area, like one of the SMEs or something like that, it might just have a help desk staff. But once we go to the next page, what happens is, so after we send that first response, we're either going to work the ticket. We send it over to technical staff, which is Dave and Janelle. We can send it to our subject matter experts, or we write up and send a data fix, or work with data fix to find out how data fix is done. And that again is where we have to thank Amy for her expertise on that. And that's just kind of how the help desk does tickets. Next slide is who can contact the help desk. You know that we have that we just the mentors can contact the help desk, which I know can sometimes be difficult, but it makes it a little bit easier to have just a group of that we know we can talk to. So supervisors, IT staff, fiscal or mentor, excuse me, workers, worker mentors can contact the help desk. And if somebody is not on our mentor list and they contact us, we will instruct them to contact their mentor to ask their question. I know sometimes it's easier for having that person being involved because it's, quite, that way you're not the in between telephone person. So in those cases, do feel free to, the mentor has to email the help desk, but CC the person that, if you want us to be able to talk to them and have some conversations with them too, we can surely do that. One big problem with the contracted workers is they do need to contact the county if they have any questions. If we receive any emails or phone calls from contracted workers, we tell them they do have to contact the county they're contracted with. I'm looking at Julie's question. Can anyone in fiscal contact the help desk? It would be a fiscal mentor. If they're on the fiscal mentor list, they can contact the help desk. If they're not on the list, we're going to either send them a message back saying, are you a mentor and you're new, or you need to contact your mentor. That lastly brings us in. Remember, mentor information can be found at the mentor page. It's got the list of mentors. And I do know that is updated quarterly. So if you do send an update into the help desk and you don't see that immediately there, that is worked on behind the scenes, but we do get your information. Heidi is amazing with updating all that. And so we do have that information updated pretty fast, at least internally. Next slide. So now we're going to just talk about some of the larger ticket items or stuff that we see a lot at the help desk and some appropriate procedures when reporting these issues. The first one is pre and post adoptive identity issues. This is probably one of the big ones that we see at the help desk. When an adoption takes place, a new identity must be entered into SSIS, just as a new PMI number is assigned. This does not matter if the name does not change. The Social Security could stay the same between the pre and the post identity. Any intake or work groups after the date adoption must be entered under the new identity. If it is found that a post-adoptive information is entered under pre-adoptive identity, this requires a data fix, and these data fixes are very time-consuming. If you find somebody who the pre and post-adoptive identity is not separated, just email the help desk with the child's pre-adoptive name. SSIS or Swindex number is helpful, and the post-adoptive name of SSIS or number and Swindex, of course, is helpful too. And we have like a worksheet we have to go through. It's pretty time consuming that we need to get to data fix in order to get all the information corrected. Next slide. We kind of been just talking about, do you have any suggestions or tips on how your agency handles pre-post adoptive names, especially when the name did not change? Every agency handles it differently. Find out what works for your agency and be consistent with it. We've seen some agencies will add in the middle name area of the pre-adoptive name, do not use, which the middle name, even if a client is locked, participant is locked because of child ward folder information or any of that, that's always editable. So you can put that do not use in there. That's one way that we've seen some people do it. We've also seen some agencies add a note in the address section of do not use, and it's a pre-adoptive identity, or they note it somehow like that. I believe we talked about too that there's some agencies that use the county ID field in the participant and have something identifying, such as an A or something like that. Does anybody else have any suggestions about how they keep pre and post adoptive identities from not being merged? If you do, feel free to share them in the chat. I know this is kind of, I don't know how the best way to keep them separate, because it is difficult. And any suggestions we can get from people, I think, help of what works for them. So if you have anything to share, please do share, and we'll share them as they come in.
I don't see anything in chat as of yet.
Yep. Sounds good. Do you want to go to the next? The next one is purge or record retention. We get a lot of questions of why is there not a destruction date in SSIS, or why is the destruction date a past date and the work group is still there? There's many reasons why this could happen. One example is someone in the case has a TPR, say never purge. If there's a payment tied to a work group, this will not purge at any time at this point. So if there's any kind of payment tied to it, it's there and will not purge. Was there a placement tied to the work group? If yes, that will extend the purge date out. There's appeals that'll also extend it. Are there other work groups in the case with the same sub-program? That date would then change the latest destruction of the work group in the case with the same sub-program. So there's a lot of little things that can make that. If you're having a really hard time and not sure why you have this work group that's not purging, if you send the help desk a email with the work group number, we do have a tool that we can look up and see what the reason is, and we can get back to you with that. So if that comes up, please do send us an email questioning or with a question on that one. Next slide. My favorite topic when it comes to help desk is clearing. I know this is probably one of the more difficult things when it comes to SSIS, I feel, probably because I cleared in the county for over 10 years. So that helps me a little bit when it comes to the help desk. But clearing is a process used to ensure there's no duplicate client entries are in SSIS database. There is some old documentation. It's pretty still relevant. It's still pretty good to be able to look at just to get some ideas. The one question we do get a lot at the help desk is the reconciliation process. What the reconciliation process is reconciling the difference between the Swindex database and the agency database. One example where you might see this is, let's say you asked for a name to be changed that the participant was locked in SSIS. We write up the data fix, send it over to Amy, and when Amy replies to you, she's going to say that the client is on the clearing log for reconcile. What that means is you got to go to the clearing log, and when you get to the clearing log, it will have reconcile next to it. So you go to the clearing log, select the client, and select reconcile. And then, yeah, that's all with reconcile. Sorry about that. Please be careful when merging clients. If in doubt, do not merge. Merging clients, being mindful when merging clients together cannot be easily fixed. This is kind of similar to a pre-post adoption issues. They're very time consuming. This is a lengthy process for both the help desk data fix and other technical teams that might be included to have to clean this up. The help desk can always assist with clearing questions. If you have a specific clearing question, please send the person number or Swindex number in an email. For me, anyways, it's a lot easier to explain clearing with examples than to just a generic kind of a thing. So if you send an email to the help desk because you're not sure how to clear this person or something like that, I'm glad to go through that and kind of explain the steps, especially for people new to clearing or just not as familiar with it. So we always have that available. Next slide, please. Unknown participants. We do receive this a lot at the help desk. Never enter and clear a participant of unknown, as in their name is unknown. Majorly, we see this in adult protection, but we do see it other places. For adult protection, though, if the perpetrator is unknown, you just enter a description. A name is not required to be entered at all for its participant. This is the same in the role tab under the adult maltreatment report. A description is all that is needed. The adult maltreatment module has excellent information to help with this. And I mean, it has pretty good details, and we will send that to, we'll send you that a lot with our response. And thanks to Anna for being the wonderful person that updates that and works with adult protection on that. I will mention, she said that there is an update coming to the adult maltreatment module, hopefully being done by the end of this month and be available next year. So questions? So if you use NA or unknown, are you actually clearing them, or are you doing unclear client, do not clear? I think Jeanette, looks like we have now entered them as NA instead of unknown. How do you get rid of the unknown when do not clear is available? Mostly those problems are because somebody has used the participant of unknown in the case notes or in the chronology somewhere. So they use that unknown person as either subject or like that they talk to, mostly subject. So if there's no way to get them out of there because you did actually talk, or that you do need them in the chronology, they actually can't be cleared. That doesn't happen very often. The best way to do it is just to not have them in the actual chronology as somebody that you talked about. I hope that answers your question. Does anybody else have any adult protection or unknown client questions?
I don't see anything yet.
Yep.
Shauna.
You can go to the next slide then. Another thing we've been seeing a lot at the help desk is legally responsible agency. Documentation on roles in legally and financially responsible agencies can be found. The link is right there in the sheet here. I've got kind of a screenshot next to it. You'll notice it's kind of old, but the information is all still relevant. The biggest thing we're seeing is continuous placements do not need to be entered for legally responsible agencies. This causes duplicates for all reports across the state that looks at data on removals, including the federal AFSCARS report. And this form is actually really informative because it kind of goes, as you see, it kind of has subject, legally responsible agency, fiscal responsible agency. and it kind of goes through each step of who does what. So this is a really good, a really good thing to help for those. The form number is DHS 3822, and the date is 5/17, just so you see that when you're picking it too. Kelly asked, what about when the victim is unknown? APS worker has chronology checkmark knowing unknown victim. APS worker says she has to document her work. Unknown victim cannot be cleared to the state. That is true. Those are the one instances where right now we don't have a great answer for it. It just kind of stays on your clearing log. Normally the ones where the victim is unknown doesn't get to the point of the case management. It's more of an intake. And that is documented in the information in the adult maltreatment module. It has pretty detailed information on that. Not seeing any other questions, we'll move on. My last one is data recovery requests. We've seen an increase of data recovery requests. Email the help desk as soon as possible when it's discovered that information in SSIS is missing. Standard timeline for recovery is only 48 hours. If it's past 48 hours, data recovery is not going to be able to find it. In making it a little bit faster and easier for us to get the data recovery information, if you can give us an estimate time of when the information was deleted. I mean, even if they think they did it yesterday sometime. The primary worker that was on the work group or intake is helpful. SSIS person number is involved. If you can indicate and let us know if it's Azure or Horizon user, we're just kind of keeping track and just making sure there's not any differences between the system. And then the last thing, if you put in the subject line that it's a data recovery, it tracks or gets our eyes on it faster to know to get it to data recovery faster. So if it's just helpful if you put that there. And I know we've kind of been talking in the meetings with tier 2, we've kind of been talking about some of the issues with the expanded editor, losing notes. And again, that is a big issue if the save button wasn't selected. And so that is one that we've talked about quite a few times in there. And I think we've seen an increase in those. So save often, which I know is kind of frustrating in that area when you're trying to do a long case note, but that does help. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? Or any of the things that I talked about? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Cassie.
Nothing in the chat.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Cassie. I am the other person here at Tier 1 Help Desk. And I have a couple things I want to talk to you guys about too this morning. Just wanted to pop on and say hi. The first thing that we want to talk about, or that I wanted to talk about, was our data fix process. Our data fixes, it's a process that we can use to correct information that was entered improperly. This process is really reserved for requests with valid business reasons. So when you're requesting a data fix, we really ask that you please provide that business reason for your request. along with that request, any identifying information that pertains to the data fix should be provided within that request. So the information that's really helpful to be included includes things like the SSIS person number, SSIS work group numbers. Even if it's an intake, we don't want that intake number. We really want the SSIS work group number. It really works better with the tools that are used for the data fix, and it kind of reduces the work that Shauna and I have to do when we prepare the data fix to send off to be conducted. Then we don't have to go in and dig through and find the work group number. If you just provide it right off the bat, you can provide continuous placement ID numbers, document ID numbers, you know, really any of those identifying numbers that are associated with your request. If your data fix is time sensitive, go ahead and add urgent to that subject line of your email. That will kind of alert us. I try not to ask people to use that urgent too frequently. It's kind of like the boy who cried wolf. If you use urgent with every email, it will kind of desensitize us. So if you are using urgent, give us a little line about why it's urgent. Sometimes things that feel urgent are not always, but there definitely are cases where it really is super time sensitive. Are there payments that need to be made within the next day or two? Like it, you know, whatever the case may be, go ahead and let us know about that, and we will try to get things done as quickly and timely as we possibly can. All of our data fix requests are subject to review, and they can be denied. This is why the business reason is so important. If we don't have that valid business reason, the request will be denied. And again, like the data fixes are really not meant to be used as a means to like clean up information. It's really meant to correct information that was improperly entered. So if there's really nothing, nothing can replace quality work when it's done the first time. So we really want to encourage you guys to do your best to get things done correctly. And also we really try to find workarounds before we do a data fix, because a lot of these really are time consuming and they can kind of have kind of trickle effects and impact other information. I see we have a question in the chat. What are other examples of business reasons other than payments? There's such a wide variety of data fixes. So we have things like the pre and post adoptive separation identity separations. Well, those really need to be separate because when a child gets adopted, it's like they're like a new person. So those are kind of self-explanatory. That's a business reason the child was adopted. What else do we have?
This is Amy. I do the data
Thank
fixes, and one of the things we really look at for business reasons is whether or not it's a stop work issue. If it's preventing you from moving forward with your work, it's something we're going to do with a data fix. If it's just a cleanup because you want to get something off a report and it's 3 years old, it's likely to be denied.
Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that.
Cassie, there's another question from Tammy. Can we send screenshots in the body of the email, or do you prefer an attached image?
Screenshots are good. Either one is good. Sometimes attachments are not as easy to open. If you guys have a whole lot of like images tied to your signatures, we have to open every single one of those images as an attachment in our queue, which is not your problem, but it can be annoying with our queue. That's my own complaint. That's not your guys' problem. So when you put them in the body of the email, that is helpful. However, if you could copy and paste like person numbers and stuff into the body rather than just sending a screenshot, that really makes it a lot easier too. That way we're not having to read it off. We can copy and paste it into things. Because human error is a thing, and typing it out while we're reading it off the screenshot can also cause more human error. But I did have a question for you guys. Sometime around October, we did change our process of how we were like conducting our data fixes and how we were just kind of sending them off. And I was wondering if anybody has any feedback on the time between being informed that your request was being sent off for the data fix and having or it having been completed. Have you noticed an increase or a decrease in how quickly they've been processed or anything like that? And if not, that's fine. I'm just curious if there was any changes that you've noticed since about October-ish till now.
The data fixes for APS seem to take a long time with the needed coordination.
Yes, I would agree with that. Anything for APS needs to be coordinated with our adult protection policy folk. So yes, those do take quite a long time.
Easy fixes seem faster, bigger fixes seem to be taking longer. I feel the process has become much quicker than it had been historically. I like it that Amy just fixes them and notifies us for the simple ones. And then those I've sent regarding PMI pushes seem to get fixed fairly quickly. And then is there anything to speed up the process so there does not need to be the back and forth for the APS ones?
Don't know that we can answer that right now, but that's something we can look at for future. Eric, maybe we can note that and talk about it down the
Okay.
road.
For sure.
All right, I'm seeing some pretty positive feedback overall. Thank you guys, I appreciate it. All right, we could probably do the next slide. All right, so PMI number not in SSIS. It's about our PMI pushes. Oh, also, does technical team provide updates? I feel like issues that go to them get lost in the ether. Are we talking about like technical issues or data fix stuff? I feel like that's more about technical issues. And we don't really have a tier 2 representative here. I don't know that technical issues get lost. I know that they are being worked on, and I don't know how their communication always gets sent out for you guys. So I can't speak to how they're doing that. That might not be the
We can
response
follow
you're
up.
looking for.
We can
Yes.
follow up with tier 2. I know that they have a weekly call right now that has been consumed with Azure related issues, but I think the overall theme of that call initially was a bi-weekly reach out with agencies to talk about these technical issues. And if their technical issues are coming in droves to tier 1 and being funneled up to tier 2 will usually send out communication, but we can definitely check in with them.
All right, so PMI numbers not in SSIS. If you are searching for a PMI number in a state search in SSIS and it's not there, you need to request for a PMI push. And it's really simple. You just email the help desk with PMI number and the initials of the person um, that are tied to that PMI. And we really don't need any other information. The email doesn't need to be sent secure since we're just getting initials and that number, and we really don't need it as urgent. Our response with the PMI pushes are normally pretty quick. If we don't have anything else really pressing, like quite often, because they're pretty simple, I get to those in pretty, like within minutes normally. I don't know how Shauna does hers, but I think we both are pretty on the ball with those. Once the PMI, or once we push the PMI, it will be available to be found in Swindex, which means it should be available to be found within a state search now. You will need to unclear and then re-clear your client to the appropriate PMI number that you're looking for. The PMI push alone will not make the PMI magically or automatically appear to your client in SSIS. That's why you need to do your clearing process again. If your information was entered into MMIS within this month, like the current month that we're in, we can't push that PMI through yet. This does not mean that the active date, or we're not meaning like the active date in MMIS, we mean like the physical date that they entered that PMI into MMIS. I see we're getting lots of questions.
Yeah.
Let's see here, pre and post adoptive child info. You need to remove the social security number from the pre-adoptive child. This is if the post-adoptive child keeps the social security number. You will be able to identify the post-adoptive child as they will have a new PMI number. The pre-adoptive child will be locked for any further changes or merges. Thank you, Kathy. Darren says PMI pushes have been processed quickly. However, the changes in MMIS do not always pull into SSIS on the first PMI push, which results in multiple push requests.
I have been, sorry, Cassie, not to interrupt
You're
you.
good.
I have a note because I've been doing some with Darren where the first push, for some reason, if it's a social security number change or date of birth change, it doesn't take. So I've got a note to talk to somebody in technical on what's going on with that.
Yep. I actually was going to bring that up to you too, Shauna, so I'm glad we're both on that page. And I have been trying to be mindful and look for that. We do a lot of PMI pushes. You guys saw the data a little bit earlier, and it's hard to catch them all if they don't pull in everything. So thank you for double checking and letting us know. If you request PMI push and receive the help desk, reply that it is in Swindex. If you aren't able to push the PMI number until next month, do you need another reminder from us to do that? Yes, please. We have a lot of tickets that we try to keep track of. And at least I personally, if I can't push it this month, I send you the email to send me another reminder next month and I close out the ticket. It's just a lot to keep track of otherwise. So please resend another reminder the next month, a new reminder instead of responding to the old ticket. It's hard to keep track of old tickets that have been closed. Remove the social security number in the client. You need the pushed PMI number. This will unclear the client and make the PMI available for you to client to clear to clear. Kathy, that's not a bad little trick. Alrighty. Thanks for the feedback, guys. Yes, clear to. Thanks, Kathy. All right, Eric, I think we can do the next slide. All right, I want to talk a little bit about statewide case access. Just a reminder to always make sure that you're accessing statewide case access by going through the alerts and reminders log. When you request, make sure that you only select one work group per case. When you select multiple work groups, you can create multiple users within the other agency's database. This can cause problems with logging on, and that's never fun. If you do have problems with logging on, which we have had some recently, please contact the help desk. There are a couple different issues that we've seen recently. So when you do contact us, we need the following things: the name of the user that's having the issue, the agency that they're trying to access, the SSIS user ID that they're using to access the other agency, not the one that they normally use for their current agency, the one that they're using to access the other agency. The work group number they're trying to access within the other agency, if they know, and what steps they're using or they're taking to access that statewide case access. So we'd want to know if they're not going through alerts and reminders log. We'd probably tell them to try doing that. And then we'd troubleshoot from there. Any questions with that? All right, next slide. So as we all know, there have been some technical issues lately. But beyond our known issues with remote desktop related to Azure, there are other technical issues too, and these change frequently, and we really want to know about these, and we hope that they are reported timely. When you do report them, I know you guys hear this a lot, and we probably sound like a broken record, but we like to give you the reminder. Please send details. Things that are helpful is the user ID of the user that's having the issue. Is the user using remote desktop or are they on Horizon? If the system's being slow, how is it being slow? Like an example is, did they do a person search and did it take such and such amount of time? A screenshot of the server information would be great. If any error messages were received, we really like to know or to see those. Those are very helpful. The screenshots are much more helpful than just telling us what the error said. Have you tried to resolve the issue already, and what have you tried? And if there are multiple users being impacted, how many are being impacted? And if it's just a couple, maybe give us all of those user IDs. If there are multiple, like more than 5, maybe give us a few user IDs, and then you can give us a ballpark number. As always, sign up for the SSIS updates to stay up to date on changes that are happening within our system. And go ahead and check out that known defects list from our recent releases. We have the link in the PowerPoint, and I find that kind of helpful. Sometimes we forget that we have all those resources out there. Next slide, please. So we ask you to contact the help desk. What's really helpful when you guys do contact us? We've found, oh, hold on, I just saw, do you know about error messages that are received even if it doesn't seem to affect ongoing work? Yes, we want to know about any error messages that you receive, please. And if it doesn't impact your work, that's interesting for our tier 2 folks to know too. Thanks, Janice. When you contact the help desk, please send all of your SSIS related questions or issues directly to the main help desk email, not to individuals, not to just me or to Janelle or Dave, unless there is a specific time that you're instructed to do so. I know we all create relationships with people, and like we're all really helpful with each other, and that's awesome. But for reporting purposes and to really make it most timely response and things to not get lost, it's really helpful if you just send it to tier 1 and we will get it sent out to the appropriate people as quickly as we can. This really helps with response times and just to make sure that we have things where they should be. When you send in things, could you please summarize your request and include all the important information clearly stated. Sometimes we get emails and we have a string of email that could be 3 months long, and I know you guys are really busy, and we get a thing that's like, oh yeah, we've got this all worked out in this 3 month long string of email, and just see below. You guys have seen our data and you see that we get really busy, and it is just Shauna and I. It does get difficult to read through 3 months worth of a string of emails to really figure out what you need, and we want to be as timely as possible, and we really want to be helpful. So I think we can all work together and be a team if you tell us what you need, and then we can dig through those emails if we need more information. So just state what you need clearly, and the information that would be really helpful. We really appreciate it. So also with that, if you have a new question or concern, send a new email. We'll create a new ticket, and then that really that helps us with our data and tracking as well. Also, there's been questions about being able to call. We get voicemails. We don't have a direct line for Shauna and I to be able to answer, but we can get your voicemails. When you call, please leave your name and your phone number and a brief description of what you need. That way, when we get that voicemail, if it's a fiscal need, we can get you sent off to the fiscal SME and they can respond to you right away, instead of us having to call back and say, hey, what did you need? Like, and then we'll just take one step out of it, and then we'll be able to take care of it. All right, next slide. All right, one more thing. If you think something's not working in SSIS, you're probably right. Please email us. You guys know the system way better than anybody else. You guys use it every single day. Without input from our end users, things would go unnoticed. They would not be corrected. And we appreciate you guys more than we could ever tell you. You guys are so committed to things working correctly in SSIS, and you guys are literally the reason that anything gets improved, because you make us aware and then we can work on things. So we appreciate you, and please report things when things aren't working. And that's all I have.
All right. So another area that I supervise here at the state is the learning and development team with SSIS. And just wanted to give just a quick high-level overview of 2023 from a learning and development perspective. This is Eric once again, by the way. This slide lists the main buckets of work that our learning and development team have focused on over the last year. So the SSIS Learning and Development team and members of the SSIS Business Operations team have worked to identify documentation that needs updating. Heidi Morris worked with our physical SMEs to update physical documentation. Learning and Development are working on updating larger modules related to chronology, work groups, court actions, participant entry, and modules related to FFPSA. Those all can be found on our SSIS homepage or the resource page. The Learning and Development team partners with the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy. We pivoted from in-class training to virtual training during the pandemic. Though we tried to pilot remote use of our training database in a couple of different training environments, we found that it proved to be difficult to manage technical issues and deliver training. So we pivoted to walkthrough learning of data entry, and this delivery model came with its own slew of issues. So as of late, we have pivoted to online vignettes or videos of data entry into SSIS that partner with the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Curriculum for New Workers and pertain to intake assessment, investigation, and case management. Again, this information only correlates with curriculum delivered at the Training Academy, so gaps remain in terms of all of the data entry required. We will continue to explore new worker training through an on-demand lens on the DHS side, and are hopeful we will continue our partnership with the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy to help us accomplish some of these goals. E-learning has been really busy updating online and on-demand SSIS learning modules related to adult protection, physical, and permanency. Many of our e-learning modules are hosted as links on the SSIS resource page to do away with the pains of logging into TrainLink, with the exception of the SSIS Essentials and our AP modules, which are hosted on TrainLink, and also the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy's Canvas site. In 2024, we hope to launch more modules around SSIS Essentials, adult protection, and newly created learning for prevention services and foster care candidacy. We also will be evaluating our mentor engagement and learning tools and new worker learning tools. And then finally, we have a partnership with SSIS Adult Protection. So in addition to e-learning, Anna Chalupka continues to offer SSIS Adult Protection online training and continues to curate the SSIS Adult Protection User Guide, also found on the SSIS Worker Documentation page. Just like to give a shout out to Ross Stack, Jason Dalrymple, Anna Chalupka, Renetta Walk, as well as all of our various partners and subject matter experts in learning and development across the SSIS section, our adult protection partners, CSP Policy, Minute at DHS, as well as the Training Academy. All right, so with that all being said, I'm going to hand it over to Marcia to walk us through the next set of slides.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm Marcia Riss, the Change and Engagement Consultant for SSIS Business Operations. I'm going to talk a little bit about what SSIS Business Operations has been working on over the last year, along with where things with enhancements and defects have gone over the last year. So, hi, good to see everyone. Okay, can you move to the next slide there, Eric? Thank you. So as a former agency SSIS coordinator who submitted quite a few enhancements over the years, I know that it can really feel sometimes that SSIS at DHS is really not doing anything useful. What are they doing there? Especially when you're not seeing your specific enhancement completed. A lot of the work that we end up having to spend time on is really not obvious to all of the users at one time. So especially when it doesn't impact your specific area of work or something really isn't visible, it's more behind the scenes, like a lot of things like fiscal and financial operations types work, maintenance types work can be. So I thought today might be a good time, since we're doing our year in review coffee talk, to bring to attention what we have been doing or working on over the last year by pointing out some of the specific work projects and giving a little bit of updates pertaining to enhancements and defects that we've been involved with during 2023. So listed here, I have just some, so certainly not all, but some of the kind of more major work items currently are just 3 staff. Including our supervisor, would be 4 members of the business operations unit attended to during 2023. So this is not an all-inclusive list, and items with an asterisk actually are, larger, and they'll continue into 2024. So that's the bulk of the things that you see here. So some of the things, AFCARS obviously is a pretty big deal for us. AFCARS, SSIS was built really around ensuring that our AFCARS work and reports can be submitted federally. Families First Prevention Services Act, so FFPSA, this is huge. It's been being worked on for several years now, continues to go, so it's been phased in, right, over time. So we're talking in the last year, we worked on things around QRTP and special certifications for special placement settings, prevention services eligibility, new in-home service plan to meet prevention services eligibility, and CWTCM requirements, all the fiscal and child foster care report work around all of this, as well as the prevention services and foster care candidacy eligibility work and QI-CANS work. So a lot of things are going on with prevention services. That's a pretty large project. Interactive video updates for TCM and SSIS has occurred over the last year. We are involved with the waiver reimagine. Right now, this is still in the early phases for our piece of it, but we're attending meetings and making sure that SSIS will be ready to determine what changes are needed and when this is moved forward. Cross-business prioritization group. So working with our business partners this year that rely on SSIS for enhancements that they submit for policy areas outside of children's services areas. Includes creation of new enhancement forms, setting up a new enhancement process with focus on increased transparency in the prioritization of enhancements and increased access to those enhancements and that status. Case management redesign project. So still in the planning stage, we're attending meetings to stay on top of plan changes and potential SSIS impacts. System and policy work groups continue to meet regularly as this effort progresses. There's been quite a bit of work over the last year in OHPP related with input from agencies and continued work with MINIT on improving OHPPs, OLA work, adoption related purge, non-caregiver CP track. We're in the planning for that, paperwork reduction, the DHS governance changes and transition to DCYF. So that's the Department of Children, Youth, and Families that we're in the midst of that transition. Of course, along with all of those kind of project type things, there's the regular items on, on a day-to-day basis that we're always thinking about. So assisting with monthly coffee talks in our section. So that includes, 4 release specific coffee talks each year. This year we did 3 Q&A type open discussion coffee talks and 3 other coffee talks on specific topics. Coordinating agency quarterly pilots, assist with worker and fiscal documentation and resources throughout the year. We assist with reviewing some of the new web-based trainings, help desk questions that come in, which were already mentioned, which go to either the CWQ or the fiscal queue when they're a little bit more complicated and might need some policy look at. Agency assistance. So we've done quite a bit of both in-person and virtual agency assist visits for technical assistance. So quite a few related to purge as well in the last year on this. And then of course we support agencies when concerns come up regarding potential data access or breaches at their agencies. So besides those, we attend, like you, a whole lot of meetings every day as we work with agencies, MINIT and business partners on SSIS specific needs, defects, enhancements, and planning. So a lot of things going on with really just a couple of people. Next slide, please. So during our July coffee talk this year, I gave a little update on enhancements completed since 2016 and what still existed as awaiting design or development. So here, as of earlier this month, are the 2023 list of new enhancement requests made. Now, this doesn't include enhancements that are duplicate to an earlier enhancement request. In those instances, we add to the earlier request and look at that prioritization whenever we have more than one request for the same thing. In 2023, there were 54 new enhancement requests. Of these, 14 were completed during 2023, with the bulk of the requests and those completed coming from child safety and permanency. So the enhancement updates on this slide do not include defects. So I want to always make that clear. So sometimes there's a problem, something's not working right, and we report that as an enhancement. Those actually go through a different process. So I'll talk about that shortly. So those are prioritized and worked on every release, and we will look at some of that work in a minute. All right, next slide, please. So since our July enhancement updates, our team, along with business areas noted here, have worked to review, merge, and reevaluate all of the existing enhancements that have been in the queue, some for many years. So as part of that process, we reached out to many that submitted items. So both policy and agency partners over the last few months may have received some emails from me or from others, other policy areas. And in the last few months, we really reached out to check, hey, do you still need this? Is this still wanted or needed? Is there something else? Maybe it was already done as well. So some of those things weren't being kept up really well in our system. So we went through, we worked to combine wherever able. So if there were things that really go hand in hand, we put those together. In July, we indicated that we had 229 items on the list as awaiting designer development. We gained 54, like I said in the last slide, over this past year and completed 14, and were able to resolve, withdraw, or merge 48 others, bringing the current total to 221 items currently awaiting designer development, give or take those enhancements received in the last several weeks. So those aren't included in these numbers. Next slide. So I mentioned defects earlier. When we talk about enhancements, I think it's also important to recognize defects, which are essentially necessary work to fix something that's already in SSIS and maybe not working correctly. So the work of Minute analysts, developers, our QA staff, and others is much like a giant crazy game of Jenga, how I think about it. The bigger SSIS gets, and it is big, and complex, knowing everything is interconnected in some way, the more likely each time we add something new or we make a change somewhere, even slight changes, that whenever we're making those changes, there might be an unintended consequence that those consequences aren't always easily identifiable up front. So when this happens, we end up with defects. So if something is reported as not working as intended, we consider that a defect and we submit a defect request. So similarly to enhancements, these get prioritized each week at our change review meetings where Minute and SSIS business operations, policy partners, and county representatives meet weekly to review and prioritize SSIS work. It all ends up requiring time and staff resources from the pool that we have, which is of course limited as well. Just like you guys have limitations, we have limitations with our staffing resources. So which is why prioritization becomes really key and also an ongoing struggle. So this year alone, Minute staff resolved over 400 SSIS defects, and some of those SSIS defects that I listed here are kind of some of the big ones that jumped out at me when I was looking through them. But again, this is just a few. So there was over 400 just in 2023 that were resolved. So some of the big ones were the multiple EPR related defects. So remember that was all early on in this year. We were getting that button out there and resolving defects as we went, both for the button and calculation related defects. Multiple FFPSA, QRTP, and EPR defects related to all of the new additions and changes over the past year. We resolved errors with DHS licensing offenders and MDH offenders not showing up on the state detail searches, so they do show up now. Resolved errors with trying to delete intakes and long-time issue with intake purge, not ensuring some intakes were purged when the associated work group purged. So many of you recently received emails about that, communications about that as we're cleaning up, and that will be fixed going forward now. We resolved multiple out-of-home placement related defects, including fixed the long present issue with saving copied OHPPs, which had been a problem for many years. Resolved multiple TCM related defects, so including mental health, CWTCM, VADD, and RSC. Fixed some, still have a couple to go. I know we're working on a couple right now, but of the foster parent relationship related defects. So there were some changes to those foster parent relationship information. Fixed the county subservice defect that had dropped the description for the subservice codes. So that was, I know, a big one that a lot of people had been waiting for. So I'm glad that that finally got fixed. Corrected multiple grid related defects in various grids throughout SSIS. Multiple APS AMR related defects resolved, lots of work and resolved defects pertaining to the CFC reports and claiming and proofing messages. So we had a lot of that this year. Multiple defects specific, document specific defect fixes, multiple fixes to several general reports over the past year, and over 20 defects related to the new AFCARS 2020 file requirements. We're still working on some of those, so you might still see some of those into 2024, but a big portion of those were done this year. So that's, like I said, just a few of them. But there are things getting done, even if you're not seeing them. It doesn't mean nothing's being done. It really means it might not be something that directly affects what you see in your specific work. But there is a lot of work being done, but we continue to look for your enhancements. Please continue to send those kinds of things in if you have something good. Again, if we have multiple for the same thing from different agencies, that's going to change that prioritization as we're looking at that. And so let's talk a little bit about enhancement process. So can you go to the next slide, Eric? All right, so this is similar to the same information, mostly the same. I maybe updated a few wording choices here, but mostly this is the information that I shared this last summer, but I wanted to bring that up again since we're still in that mix of updating this process. So some of the information that I shared during July, just worth, a quick review here. So who submits? Counties and tribes, as well as various program policy areas at DHS. So I listed some of them here. Of course, it can be any areas that utilize SSIS in different ways that might be asking for things. When we get the requests from various program policy areas, oftentimes those are related to federal, state, tribal law changes or requirements, as well as audit findings. So sometimes those end up taking precedence, which is why sometimes the other enhancements, the nice to have things, get pushed down the line. So how to submit? Policy areas can submit directly to our internal SharePoint site, which we're working on that to be switched over to the Microsoft 365 site. So we're still in the mix of that. Or they can contact the SSIS help desk directly, who will send them to one of our SSIS business operations staff for assisting completing and submitting those forms. Counties and tribes send requests to SSIS help desk, and the help desk sends on to the appropriate members of the SSIS business ops team, who will follow up as needed. So sometimes this means submitting the request as is, sometimes following up with submitter for additional information or clarification about what the request is, and following up oftentimes with policy as well. So, we can receive a request, but sometimes if it really involves a policy kind of decision, we would follow up with policy as well for consults on that request. So if it's determined that the enhancement is not appropriate or necessary, the business operations team member will follow up with the requester. So you'll get a heads up about that. Often we do this with some information on resources that may help you resolve your issue that prompted their request. So sometimes there's just some additional information that maybe we can share or educate. We will also give the requester a heads up if it's accepted and accepted enhancement, and then it will go through the prioritization process. It is a slow process, so you might not get a response immediately. I know I have several in my email right now. It's really, I try to get to them once a month where I'm actually going through and taking the time to go through anything new and following up on things. So it is slow. If you didn't hear something back, I think we had a request about that recently. You can certainly send in a status request on that and I can follow up. How are they prioritized? So this is changing. So in an effort for more transparency, a new form and process, which will involve some formulaic auto calculations to help score and rank items accordingly, is getting started. So we already have that form ready to go, and we're working on that SharePoint site that makes it a little bit more transparent. We hope to have that system in place and running in the coming months for our internal policy partners. And then down the road, the hope is at some point we would be able to allow mentors as well to be able to view those status. So that's my ultimate goal, is to make it as transparent as possible so you could see the status of things and what's sitting out there. So status requests, our goal, like I mentioned, of the new request form and submission process is that the new system will allow easier tracking and more transparency. So stay tuned for more information on that as we get going with that. This work is still in progress. So that's what I have. And I think Cynthia is up next.
Thank you so very much, Marcia. Today I'm just going to I have a few slides to share with everybody about this really exciting work, the SSIS Paperwork Reduction Act, which is what this is really, we're really excited to get started on this, and can't wait to share this information with you. So, all right, let's go ahead. Next slide. Thank you. All right, so Folks may be aware that we have that in the last legislative session, what we refer to as the SSIS Paperwork Reduction Act, or I should say more specifically, the Child Protection Paperwork Reduction Act, was passed. And really this was in response to all of the legal and policy changes that have been incorporated over the past 23, 25 years of SSIS. And you guys are most familiar and with all of the questions and concerns. And I would also say that we are, in some ways, the work of the mentors has really is, at least from my perspective, is really what has pushed us to be able to do this really important work of reviewing the SSIS system for redundancies and user experience issues and all of that. So I don't know if folks remember, maybe, I don't know, four years ago where I asked people, please send everything in, and you guys did it. And that started kind of a lot of really positive things, including our regular technical meetings with our minute partners, and then also really, at least from my perspective, has led to this work. So we've had, really appropriate complaints that have been focused on this duplicative entry, changes that are really not required in law to be in the system, and some concerns about that. And of course, all of the technical issues that have played a part of this, whether it's been from centralization or other just slowness issues, black screen of death, all of those things have really just caused even accessing the system to be a real burden. So we were able, with fantastic partners, you guys, all of the mentors who have so consistently provided us information, and when we've had mad calls for information, have really, really come through, participated in many other ways to give us feedback and make sure that we are have hosted us for in-person meetings. All of that has really helped. And in particular, I also want to mention the MAXA Children's Committee, as well as Scott and Pine counties, really were excellent partners for having this legislative change or legislative act passed last year. All right, next slide. So what does this mean? What does this really mean? So what it means, this Paperwork Reduction Act requires us to really do 3 things by June 30th. So this is really getting information about all of the procedures that we've used for soliciting ongoing user input from stakeholders, the progress to streamline data entry requirements and improve user experience, and the progress on hiring, soliciting external or independent consultation to do a system evaluation. So that's really at a high level what we are kind of required to do from this Paperwork Reduction Act, specifically focused on child protection paperwork in SSIS. All right, next slide. So the fun part, here's the fun part, is where we really get to operationalize this. And this means really 2 phases. The first one is we're going to be putting together a process to review all of the input fields required for child protection cases. And we're going to be looking for every single field. What's required? Is it required by state law, federal law, in order for us to clear, what is actually required? And we're also going to be looking at user interface and slowness and those kinds of things as we go through this with a fine-tooth comb. So we are developing that process, and it will include input from the users, mentors, and policy folks. Specifically, we're going to be asking to have input from the people who are doing those things, whether it's child protection intake or adoption, all of those things that are proper child protection. We're going to be asking for some review of that. And we will be connecting back out with folks. Some of you guys, we may ask for a little bit of your time and expertise as we go through this process. And then when we are completed with this at the end of phase 1, we're going to be developing recommendations to streamline and reduce the data entry requirements for child protection cases. The second phase is really getting consultant recommendations for improving the current state of SSIS for usability and system performance. And the things that it must include is technical problems, burdensome and data entry requirements, and also helping us determine selecting a platform for future development. So really that's like, what is the future state of SSIS going to look like? And how should we get there? So that's, to me, this is really exciting work. And next slide. So right now, as I mentioned, we're currently working on the full processes for phase 1 and 2. Phase 1 is going to be incredibly inclusive of all of the information that we get, that we have received back from the child protection work. So everything that you guys are sending in to us, all of the known issues, complaints from a really wide variety of places, whether it's, I mean, it's really just everywhere, from the Child Welfare Training Academy, from all of the different work groups and in-person meetings we have, and all of our policy partners. So we're really excited about that. And I just want to mention how important that stakeholder inclusion is going to be. And so we're really talking about making sure we have direct feedback from the people who are actually doing the work right now today. Like I said, whether they're intake workers, assessment workers, and then we're also going to be reaching out to some of you and a few other folks as well. And we're going to share all of the details of this in January for what we're going to be doing, how this is going to be rolled out, if you guys have any questions or any specific interest, you can always feel free to send something into the help desk and they will get that to me as well. I'm not seeing any questions right now, but if anybody does have any questions, let me know.
All right, thanks so much, Marcia and Cynthia. I'm going to do a little bit of a drum roll here. The next slide, we're going to reveal our SSIS Mentor of the Month. Drum roll. And to introduce that individual, we have Shauna coming back on the mic. So here we go.
So your drum roll, that's awesome.
Ta-da!
Our mentor of the month is Peggy Klinger in from Brown County. I just want to share just a big appreciation for you, Peggy. I know, I can't remember how long it was a few weeks ago, and I apologize to everybody. The response time from the help desk can be a little bit slower lately, and we're trying our best with just the two of us. And there was one day where Peggy had sent in a ticket, and it was a busy day, and I had not responded, and she actually responded again to the email before I did and said, I found it in the online. I found the job aids information, and it was something that wasn't even a fiscal question. So, kudos to her for being able to find that stuff. We know that trying to find the resources online is a really big job. And, we really appreciate the help at the front at the help desk. So Peggy, we appreciate your helpfulness and patience with the help desk. Thank you, Peggy and Brown County. If you have a special SSIS coordinator or mentor that you'd like to see recognized at an upcoming coffee talk, please send your nomination in to Heidi Morris along with a brief message on why you think they should be the next mentor of the month.
Thanks, Shauna. And thank you, Peggy. Hopefully Peggy's on the call. If not, if somebody works with her at her agency, let her know. All right. Next coffee talk is scheduled for Tuesday, January 23rd of 2024, and that's from 9 to 10:30. It's going to be an open discussion. So as usual, please share your ideas for the open discussion and send them to heidi.morris@state.mn.us. More information coming soon via an SSIS update or a mentor blast. And I'd like to thank all of our SSIS mentors, coordinators, supervisors, directors, et cetera, that attend the coffee talk. As always, please funnel your questions into the SSIS help desk as they arise, and we definitely appreciate all of the work and collaboration over the year of 2023, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. So everybody have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much.